Must we obey the Old Testament laws? Christians who really care about pleasing God have a problem. Must they follow all the laws of the Old Testament? Or at least must they obey some of them? And if so, which ones? The letters of the apostles do tell us that we have been freed from the law of the Old Testament, that we are not under the law anymore, but under grace. When we are led by the Spirit, Scripture says, we are no longer under the law. We cut ourselves off from Christ if we try to be justified by keeping the law. We have fallen away from grace. Yet, there is a passage in the New Testament that seems to say otherwise. In Matthew 5:17-20, Jesus said, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the laws of the Old Covenant. I did not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. I assure you that as long as heaven and earth exist, not one word shall pass away from the law until all is fulfilled." When reading this verse, we understand that no commandment should ever be removed or changed from the law of God that was given to Moses. But notice that Jesus completed the above sentence with the words, "until all is fulfilled." This means that the law could be changed if certain events are met. What are these events that must be fulfilled and that will allow changes to be made to God's law? The letter to the Hebrews in the Bible, chapter 7, tells us that the law of the Old Covenant cannot be changed unless God makes an altogether new covenant with new instructions and laws. And he did so, having even predicted that he would do so. "Behold, the days are coming, says the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, a covenant that will be different from the one that I made with their forefathers." That's in Jeremiah 31 verse 31. 6 centuries after this prophecy was made, Jesus Christ, God's Messiah, came to earth and inaugurated our New Testament. Since the Old Testament was getting old, ready to vanish altogether. Jesus himself became now our eternal high priest, and his laws replaced the Old Covenant's laws. Before Jesus' coming, God the Father had repeatedly sent prophets to exhort his people to live in a holy and righteous way, and not to merely observe the feasts, sacrifices, and other customs that he had commanded them. But the Jews did not pay attention to the words of the prophets. They kept on cleaning the exterior of the cup and casserole while leaving it filthy inside, with greed and self-centeredness, as Jesus told them in Matthew 23 verse 25. When the Messiah, the only Son of God, finally appeared, he brushed aside the importance of the laws and religious traditions of the Old Covenant and dealt instead with what matters most in God's eyes, the spiritual qualities that he wants to see in us and that should govern all our actions. He stripped therefore from the old law everything that was distracting and not absolutely necessary for the betterment of man and for his salvation, and emphasized on what was absolutely basic and necessary, such as faith in the Messiah, that is in Jesus himself, submission to his words, and living a just, holy, and morally correct lifestyle that springs from fearing God and loving our fellow man. With this new, more precise version of the law, men can now better determine what God wants them to do in the different situations they find themselves in. And the repentant sinner can now be declared righteous by God because of God's gracious and forgiving tendency that He has towards those who love and follow His Messiah. So, the Old Testament laws and regulations have been set aside when Jesus shouted on the cross with His last breath, "It is finished," meaning all has been fulfilled, referring to the sentence that He had added in Matthew 5:17-20. Jesus passed over the law of Moses and inaugurated the new covenant, whose laws are governed by the basic notions of truth, justice, love, faith in Him, mercy, and other such virtues. For the whole law is fulfilled in these two sentences: "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you," which is in Matthew 7 verse 12 and Luke 6:31, and "Love your neighbor as you love yourselves," which is in Galatians 5:14. Having now been given such a perfect law, let us beware of bringing back the incomplete Old Testament's laws that were torn down by Christ, for then we become transgressors of the truth. In order to emphasize that the Old Testament should not be applied with the New, the Lord told us this parable. No one sews a patch of new cloth on an old garment, because the new cloth will pull on the old ones when washed, and the patch will fail. And the same with new wine. It must not be put into sacks that contained old wine, because those sacks have been strained during the fermentation of the old wine, and they will burst when the new wine will also ferment. By this, we understand that it is not possible to keep the laws of the Old Covenant and at the same time be guided by the spirit of freedom that we received when we believed in Jesus Christ. We have been freed from following the letter of the law of the Old Testament. Let us, however, not use this freedom that we are given as an excuse to do what our flesh desires. So let us not return to the disadvantageous and outdated commandments of the Old Testament, that teach us to strictly observe feasts or Sabbaths, or not eating formerly forbidden foods. You can and should read through the law of Moses. Study it to better understand and discern what pleases or displeases God. Simply keep in mind that you are not required any longer to follow it strictly to the letter. Just try to discern the spiritual connotations of the command, such as faith, trust, holiness, justice, love, and all other such virtues, and you will know whether you should still apply it or not. Thank you.
Good.